This is Earth. All but 500 of everybody who has ever lived has spent their entire lives on this planet. This planet is one tiny speck under the whole scale of the universe. But the history of how we came to be is a long one, and only the beginning of finding our place in the universe. I'm going to get pretty deep here. What is the reasoning of life? Did some god or gods make it? For what? Were they bored? Is it a cycle with no start or end? The big crunch happens only for the big bang to occur right after? Is the universe just an experience? One to enjoy while you could? We will never know, possibly until whoever made the universe comes in to tell us, if there is somebody who did. There's no real explanation of why anything has happened. Did a god command anything that ever happened to happen? Or did that god command one single event that is responsible for everything after it? Is there a god in the first place? If I'm being honest, I don't know what religion I could believe the most. Personally, I think maybe if you believe this happens after death, that's what happened. If you believe there's a heaven or hell, there's a heaven or hell. If you believe in reincarnation, you come back as a new life. You get what I mean. Oh, come on, I didn't even say let that sink in. Life is interesting. Where did it come from? Why is it a thing? The creation of the universe isn't highly regarded as the worst decision in history for no reason. Now, whatever the meaning of life is, let's say some guy in his bedroom in 2010 loaded up Spore and decided to slam a planet with an asteroid, creating life. For over 1 billion years, life was very basic. By the end, the most complex of life that lived during the pre-Cambrian made their debut, and most of them didn't really have the organs you'd expect. No faces, no butts, or, well, yeah. There were also sponges, flatworms, and jellyfish, but I don't really need to introduce them. These organisms were mostly independent, but some lived in small colonies. If they were becoming more advanced, who knows? Maybe they could make their own colonies. And that's what they thought. I think. They decided they were going to become more complex. After taking inspiration from how much Wii Sports Resort was upgraded, they diversified. And a lot. The Phanerozoic had just started, beginning the current geological eon. If you don't know what any of that means, eon is basically just a very big period of time. The first of the Phanerozoic was the Paleozoic, which is basically just a smaller period of time. Then came the Cambrian period, an even smaller period of time, all of which occurred at the same time. But life at this time didn't know this, because they had no time for us silly humans to decide what happened or not. Either way, the Cambrian started off with a bang. Literally, not literally. The Cambrian explosion occurred, where life diversified into organisms that are complex enough to resemble how they are today. Dry land also resembled something of today. Similarly to Tumblr, it was a barren wasteland. And there weren't even tumbleweeds to fly across the screen, so it's just extra boring. But the water was much different. It was full of new life, either like what they are today or completely alien. So we're going to be talking about the animals of the Cambrian, and later some about the Ordovician and the Silurian, which I probably mispronounced. Although the Cambrian is the center point of this video. The Cambrian has some of the strangest animals in history, and one of the most popular extinct animals lived during this time. The most well-known of this period, and of many different extinct species possibly, besides dinosaurs, were the arthropods, especially the trilobites. Trilobites weren't the most dominant species, but arthropods were. In fact, there are so many, despite not fossilizing very well, we know over 20,000 species of trilobites alone. This is because of their defense. They had tough armor blanketing them wherever they went, protecting themselves from predators and turfs. Their eyes were great, using compound eyes, letting them see camouflage because of how they detected movement. Unfortunately, they had one weakness. They only had armor protecting the top of their body, at the bottom. This is where my favorite Cambrian animal comes in. These guys are related to each other. The Opabinia is extremely weak, large, and has a trunk and 5 eyes. The tardigrade is small, super defensive, and has 2 eyes and 4 legs. But here's the thing, the tardigrade has a strange past. The Opabinia was great at first. This is because arthropods are basically invincible. But the Opabinias thought, hey, what if I picked them up and ate their weak spot? So they grew a trunk. This wasn't it, though. They grew 5 compound eyes to see in all directions, and detect the motion of predators from a great distance away. In fact, this weird body plan led to both the audience of Whittington's analysis laughing at first glance and modern interest into the Cambrian explosion. This didn't make them perfect, though. They were super weak and had no other options than to run if attacked. That's if they could run. After requiring a defensive option, the Opabinia went to a therapist who told it just to defend itself more. Unfortunately, the therapist was quite terrible at their job, and the Opabinia decided it was going to defend not by using escape plans, but rather defending itself from basically everything else. This is what we now have as the tardigrade. Hey, coach this? Hi, Coag this. Are you sure that's correct? No. Anyway, the AfterInfinity is the first widely agreed upon fish. Its fast turning speeds giving it a great escape option from predators. The fish barely exceeded the microscopic scale, but that's like everything else at the time. AfterInfinity is about the size of that piece of food in your teeth that will come out for some reason. It may also be the first vertebrate, and if not, is one of the earliest ones. The AfterInfinity, being a jawless fish, saw its demise later on. One of the earliest ancestors of the velvet worm came in the form of the Hostogenia, a worm with 7 to 8 legs. The most notable feature is of its large spikes, which unfortunately only defend against predators and not dream stands. This is probably why the Hostogenia went extinct. The spikes are great for piercing, though, which is why many insects use piercing today. The legs, on the opposite side, were much more flexible. It wasn't much of a threat to anybody else, though. It was small and didn't move very fast. Betoa was a bit of a weird-looking one. He was bullied by Karl in 4th grade and cyberbullied by Samantha in 7th. Fortunately, Betoa found out he could stop the cyberbullying by turning his phone off. By a sudden twist, he was the phone and Betoa went extinct. It was a carnivorous anomalocard that had stalked eyes. As opposed to the next animal of the same genus, the Betoa was not an apex predator because of the attributes that led directly to the bullying poor Betoa enjoyed in elementary to middle school. One of the earliest examples of an apex predator, the Anomalocaris' only competition was of other Anomalocaris. Unfortunately, God hadn't disabled friendly fire yet, so this was a very real problem. The Anomalocaris did what the Opalbinia didn't. It had strong armor that could only be pierced by another Anomalocaris. It had flaps on the side of its body, letting it run away from all the people that it pissed off after saying, "Oh my god," in r/atheism. That, or it was used for swimming. Scientists aren't able to determine which is the main reason yet, but either is reasonable. It had 2 trunks, letting it pick up the prey and bring it to its mouth. Since the prey weren't DeviantArt users, they most likely hated the whole experience. Luckily, unlike the Betoa, the Anomalocaris could run the fastest, so therefore all the girls in his 3rd grade class still loved him. Once he entered middle school, though, he started getting bullied. Thankfully, this problem was quickly solved once the Anomalocaris ruthlessly murdered and ate his classmates. Not as a bullying revenge thing, but more of as a, I don't want my species to go extinct thing. Unfortunately, the whole anti-extinction thing didn't go to plan because it turns out the Anomalocaris were British and they all died out when the climate cooled. This will lead to the next period, the Ordovician.